Captain Lee Minho was checking his ship's systems when the warning light started flashing. His patrol ship was floating near the edge of the solar system, watching for any strange activity. It was supposed to be a quiet day. The stars looked the same as always, cold and distant. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said his communications officer. "It's not from Earth." Lee Minho felt his stomach drop. Signals from space usually meant trouble. "Put it on the main screen." The message that appeared was unlike anything he had ever seen. Strange symbols filled the screen, but somehow his brain could understand them. The aliens had sent the message in a way that any intelligent species could read. "People of Earth," the message began. "We are the Galactic Council. We speak for 12 great civilizations that rule this galaxy. We have watched your species for many years. You have grown too fast. You have become too dangerous." Lee Minho read the words twice. His hand started shaking. "Your species learns too quickly. What takes other races thousands of years, you do in hundreds. This is not natural. This is not safe. You are a threat to the peace of our galaxy." The message continued with cold, simple words. "You have 180 days to leave your home planet forever. Take your people and go somewhere else. If you stay, we will destroy every living thing on Earth. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning." Lee Minho stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he started recording everything. Earth needed to know about this right away. Back on Earth, Dr. Park Suna was working late in her laboratory when the emergency call came. She was the head of the Global Space Initiative, the group that planned humanity's expansion into space. She had spent her whole life dreaming of the day humans would meet aliens. This was not how she had imagined it would happen. The meeting room was full within an hour. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials from every nation sat around the long table. The alien message played on every screen in the room. "They want us gone," said General Kim Tae-woo. "Just like that. Pack up and leave." "Where would we even go?" asked Dr. Yoon Mirai. "There are 8 billion people on Earth. We don't have ships that can carry everyone." President Kim Do-hyun sat quietly at the head of the table. He was thinking hard about something. Finally, he spoke. "What if we said yes?" Everyone started talking at once. "You can't be serious," someone said. "This is our home," said another. President Kim held up his hand for silence. "Listen to me. They expect us to beg. They think we'll panic and ask them to let us stay. They probably want us to become their slaves or something." Dr. Park Suna nodded slowly. She was starting to understand. "You want to surprise them?" "Exactly," President Kim said. "What if we told them thank you for the warning? What if we said we'll be gone in 90 days instead of 180? Admiral Chen Ji-hoon laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "Sir, we don't have the ships. We don't have the technology. Moving 8 billion people off Earth in 90 days is impossible." "Then we make it possible," President Kim said. "We've done impossible things before. We went from riding horses to flying to the moon in less than 100 years. We can do this too." Dr. Park Suna pulled up some files on her computer. "We have been working on big ship designs for years. Colony ships that could carry millions of people. We never built them because we didn't need them yet." "How long would it take to build them?" President Kim asked. "With the whole world working together, maybe we could do it. But sir, where would we go?" "Space is big and empty and cold," President Kim smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We'll figure that out. Right now I want to send these aliens a message they won't expect." The message went out 6 hours later. It was short and simple. "Thank you for the advance notice. We will be gone in 90 days. Consider this our resignation from your galaxy." On the crystal world of Valthera, the Galactic Council received the human response. Counselor Vexathani read it 3 times before she believed it. "They said thank you," she told the other council members. "They're actually thanking us." High Chancellor Mordeth was confused. This is not how other species react. Usually they beg or threaten or try to negotiate. "Maybe they're just scared," suggested Counselor Zeph Karen. "Maybe they're pretending not to care." But deep down, some of the council members felt worried. In all their years of ruling the galaxy, no species had ever responded like this. Most species fought back or tried to hide. None had ever just said yes and walked away. Back on Earth, the real work was beginning. Every factory in the world stopped making cars and computers and started making spaceship parts. Every scientist and engineer worked on the same project. Every government opened its secrets to everyone else. Dr. Park Suna had never seen anything like it. Humanity was working together like never before. Countries that had been enemies for centuries were sharing their best technology. It was like the whole species had become one big family. "It's amazing what people can do when they have to," she told her assistant. The assistant nodded. "Do you really think we can do this? Get everyone off Earth in 90 days? Dr. Park Suna looked out the window at the construction sites that covered the horizon. Giant ships were taking shape faster than anyone had thought possible. "I don't know if we can do it," she said, "but I know we're going to try." Lee Minho's patrol ship had become the communications center for all contact with the aliens. Every day, the Galactic Council sent messages asking for updates. They wanted to know how the evacuation was going. They seemed surprised that humanity was actually doing it. "Tell them we're on schedule," President Kim ordered. "Tell them we'll be gone on time." Lee Minho sent the messages, but he was starting to understand something. The aliens were scared. They kept asking questions because they couldn't believe what was happening. They had expected humanity to fail. "Sir," he told President Kim during one of their daily calls, "I think they're starting to panic." President Kim smiled. "Good. Let them wonder what we're really up to." The truth was, humanity was up to something. But even Lee Minho didn't know what it was yet. Admiral Yoon Ji-won had never seen anything like the construction sites that now covered half of Asia. Giant spaceships were growing like metal mountains, built by millions of workers who never stopped. The ships were bigger than cities, and there were dozens of them. "How are we doing on schedule?" she asked engineer Choi Sun-ho. Choi Sun-ho wiped sweat from his face. He had been working for 36 hours straight. "We're actually ahead of schedule. The new fusion engines are working better than we hoped. Each ship can carry 2 million people." Admiral Yoon nodded. The fusion engines were humanity's secret weapon. While other species in the galaxy still used slow chemical rockets, humans had figured out how to make stars in bottles. The aliens didn't know about this technology yet. "What about supplies?" Admiral Yoon asked. "That's where it gets interesting," Choi Sun-ho said with a tired smile. "We're not just taking people. We're taking everything." Across the world, something amazing was happening. Humanity wasn't running away like scared animals. They were moving like a perfectly organized army. Every city was being carefully taken apart. Every building, every road, every piece of technology was being packed up and loaded onto the ships. Dr. Kang Yoonji was leading the most important project of all. She was studying the alien technology and their messages, trying to understand how it worked. What she found made her very excited. "President Kim, you need to see this," she said during an emergency video call. President Kim looked tired. He had been working day and night for weeks. "What did you find?" "The aliens use something called hyperspace for fast travel between stars." "But sir, their technology is actually very simple. We can build something much better." Dr. Kang pulled up diagrams on her computer. "Look at this. They use fixed paths through hyperspace like roads, but we could build something that goes anywhere like a helicopter." President Kim leaned forward. "Are you saying we could travel faster than they can?" "Much faster. And sir, there's something else. The way their technology works, they need special places in space to enter hyperspace. Earth is sitting right on top of one of the biggest ones." President Kim was quiet for a moment. Then he started smiling. "So when we leave, their main highway gets cut off." "Yes, sir. Half the galaxy uses the hyperspace point near Earth for trade and travel." Meanwhile, Captain Nam Hyasu was leading a different kind of mission. Her job was to make sure humanity took everything valuable from Earth. Not just the people and cities, but the animals, plants, and even the air. "We're loading the last of the Amazon rainforest today," she reported to Admiral Yoon. "Every tree, every bird, every insect, it's all going into biostorage containers." The biostorage containers were another human invention that amazed everyone. They could keep entire forests alive in spaces the size of shipping containers. Other species had never thought of anything like this. "What about the oceans?" Admiral Yoon asked. "We're taking samples of everything. Fish, whales, even the coral reefs. When we build our new home, we'll have everything we need to make new oceans." The Galactic Council was getting more worried every day. Their spy satellites showed the humans working like machines, but they couldn't understand what humanity was really doing. "They're dismantling their entire planet," reported Councillor Vexthani. "Not just the cities. They're taking apart mountains to get the metals inside. They're even collecting their atmosphere." High Chancellor Mordeth paced around the council chamber. "This doesn't make sense. Why would they take rocks and dirt? Where could they possibly go that would need so much material? Maybe they're planning to build a new planet somewhere, suggested Counselor Zefkaran. Impossible. No species has that kind of technology. But humanity did have that technology and they were using it. Dr. Lim Tae-hyun had figured out how to break down any material and store it in quantum containers. A mountain could fit in a box the size of a refrigerator. We're not just leaving Earth, he explained to his research team. We're taking Earth with us. The work was dangerous and exhausting, but nobody complained. Every human on the planet understood what was at stake. They had been given a choice, leave or die. They chose to leave, but they were going to do it in a way that would shock the galaxy. Captain Song Hana was in charge of the Deep Space Scouts. Her ships were already exploring beyond the solar system, looking for the perfect place to go. What she found was very interesting. Admiral Yoon, we've discovered something amazing, she reported from her ship at the edge of the galaxy. The space between galaxies isn't empty. There are structures out there, old ones. Admiral Yoon pulled up the data Song Hana had sent. The images showed massive objects floating in the dark space between galaxies. They looked like they had been built by someone, but they were clearly very old. Any signs of life? Admiral Yoon asked. No, but something strange happens when our ships get close. The structures start glowing. It's like they're responding to us somehow. Back on Earth, Ambassador Ryu Minsuk was handling communications with other alien species. Not the Galactic Council, but smaller groups that traded with Earth. What he learned was very useful. Sir, I've been talking to the Altarian merchants, he told President Kim. They're scared about what happens when we leave. They say the Council has been bullying smaller species for centuries. President Kim was interested. How many smaller species are there? Hundreds, sir. Most of them are afraid of the Council. Some of them have been kicked out of the galaxy too, just like us. Where did they go? That's the interesting part. Nobody knows. They just disappeared. But sir, I think I know where they went. Ambassador Ryu showed President Kim the reports from Captain Song Hana. What if all those exiled species went to the space between galaxies? What if they're still out there? President Kim stared at the data for a long time. Ryu, I want you to send a message to those ancient structures. Tell them humanity is coming and we're bringing friends. On the 60th day, something happened that surprised everyone. The Galactic Council sent a new message to Earth. It wasn't threatening this time. It sounded almost worried. People of Earth, we have been watching your evacuation efforts. We are impressed by your organization and efficiency. Perhaps we were too hasty in our decision. We would be willing to discuss allowing some of your people to remain on Earth as supervised citizens. President Kim read the message aloud to his cabinet. Then he started laughing. They're scared, said Dr. Park Suna. They're realizing they made a mistake. What should we tell them? Asked Admiral Yoon. President Kim thought for a moment. Tell them thank you for the generous offer, but we've made other plans. Tell them not to worry about us. The message went out an hour later. It was polite but firm. Humanity was leaving and nothing would change their minds. On day 75, the first ship started launching. They rose from Earth like silver birds carrying millions of people toward the stars. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, faster and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The aliens watched in amazement as ship after ship left Earth. They had never seen anything like the human exodus. It was organized, efficient, and unstoppable. Where are they going? High Chancellor Mordeth asked his advisors. We don't know, sir. They're heading toward the edge of the galaxy, but then they just disappear. Disappear how? Our sensors lose them completely. It's like they're using technology we don't understand. On day 85, Captain Lee Min-ho sent the final message from Earth. This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the Earth Defense Force. All human civilians have been evacuated. Military forces are preparing for final departure. We thank the Galactic Council for their patience during this process. But Lee Min-ho didn't mention the surprises humanity had left behind. Hidden throughout the solar system were sensors and communication devices. Humanity was leaving, but they would still be watching. On day 90, the last human ship left Earth. President Kim stood on the bridge, looking back at the blue planet that had been humanity's home for millions of years. Any regrets, sir? Asked Admiral Yoon. President Kim shook his head. No regrets. We're not running away. We're running toward something better. Behind them, Earth looked empty and dead. The aliens had gotten what they wanted, but they were about to learn that sometimes getting what you want is the worst thing that can happen to you. 6 months had passed since humanity left Earth, and they were now floating in the dark space between galaxies. Most people expected this to be the hardest part of their journey. Instead, it turned out to be the most amazing time in human history. Chief Scientist Lim Tae-hyun couldn't believe what his instruments were showing him. "The physics here are completely different," he told his research team. "Without the gravity from stars and planets, we can do experiments that were impossible back home." The space between galaxies wasn't empty like everyone thought. It was full of strange energy that seemed to respond to human thoughts and intentions. When human scientists tried to build new technologies, the energy helped them work better than anyone expected. "Look at this," said Dr. Han Ji-young, showing Lim Tae-hyun her latest experiment. She had built a small device that could create matter from pure energy. "This should be impossible, but it works perfectly out here." Captain Song Hana was exploring the ancient structures they had found floating in the void. Her ship, the New Horizon, had become the center of the most important discovery in human history. "Admiral Yoon, you need to see this in person," Song Hana radioed back to the main fleet. "These structures aren't just old buildings. They're some kind of transportation network." When Admiral Yoon arrived at Song Hana's location, she couldn't believe her eyes. The structure was enormous, bigger than Earth's moon, and it was glowing with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered its surface, and they seemed to shift and change as she watched. "What happens when you touch it?" Admiral Yoon asked. "That's the amazing part," Song Hana said. "Watch this." She flew her ship closer to the structure and gently touched its surface. Immediately, the entire thing came alive with light and energy. "It's responding to us," Song Hana explained. "These structures have been sleeping for millions of years, but they wake up when humans get close. No other species can activate them." Dr. Kang Yoonji was studying the structures from her laboratory ship. What she discovered changed everything they thought they knew about the universe. "These aren't just transportation devices," she reported to President Kim. "They're gateways. They can connect any point in the universe to any other point instantly." President Kim was amazed. "Are you saying we could travel to other galaxies?" "Not just travel, sir. We could bring other galaxies here, or go there and bring things back. Distance doesn't matter anymore." But the most important discovery came from Ambassador Ryu Min-seok. He had been trying to send messages through the Gateway network, hoping to contact other civilizations. What he found was better than he had hoped. "Sir, we're not alone out here," he told President Kim excitedly. "There are dozens of other species living in the void. All of them were exiled from the galaxy just like us. The first contact came from a species called the Corvani. They had been banished from the galaxy 3,000 years ago for being too creative. Their leader, a being named Thexanol, spoke to President Kim through the Gateway network. "Humans," Thexanol said, "we have been waiting for someone like you. The Galactic Council fears any species that grows too fast or thinks too differently. They have been throwing us out here for thousands of years." "How many exiled species are there?" President Kim asked. 47 that we know of. Some have been here so long they've forgotten their home worlds. But we've all been waiting for the right moment." "The right moment for what?" Thexanol's answer made President Kim smile. "Revenge." Over the next few months, humanity made contact with all 47 exiled species. Each one had a story similar to humanity's. They had been growing too fast, learning too quickly, or asking too many questions. The Galactic Council had decided they were threats and thrown them out. But living in the void had made these species stronger, not weaker. The strange energy of intergalactic space had helped them develop technologies that made the Galactic Council's weapons look like toys. General Oh Seokjin was put in charge of training the new Alliance military forces. What he saw amazed him. "These exiled species have been preparing for this day for centuries," he told Admiral Yoon. "They have weapons and ships that can appear anywhere instantly. They can fight a war across the entire galaxy at the same time. The ancient Gateway network was the key to everything. Engineer Choi Sun-ho had figured out how to activate more and more of the sleeping structures. Each new gateway they awakened added to their power. It's like the whole universe is one big machine," he explained to President Kim. "And humans are the only species that can turn it on." Back in the galaxy, things were not going well for the Galactic Council. Without Earth's hyperspace junction, their trade routes had collapsed. Wars were breaking out as different species fought over the remaining resources. Scout Commander Shin Yuna had been watching the galaxy through hidden sensors humanity had left behind. Her reports were getting more interesting every day. 3 of the 12 council races are nearly bankrupt, she reported. The Zalaran Empire has lost half its territory. The Vorthak Confederation is fighting a civil war. What about the others? President Kim asked. They're all blaming each other for the decision to exile humanity. The council barely exists anymore. High Chancellor Mordeth was indeed having the worst time of his very long life. The Galactic Council met every day now, but they spent most of their time arguing about who was to blame for their problems. The humans were more important than we realized, admitted Councillor Vexathani. We should have studied them instead of just throwing them out. It's too late now, said Councillor Zefkaran. They're gone and they're never coming back. But Mordeth wasn't so sure. His spies had been trying to track the human fleet, but they had completely disappeared. It was like 8 billion people and hundreds of ships had just vanished from the universe. Where could they have gone? He asked his intelligence officers. We don't know, sir. Our best guess is that they found some way to leave the galaxy entirely. What Mordeth didn't know was that humanity hadn't just left the galaxy. They had found something much better. They had found a way to connect every galaxy in the universe. Dr. Yang Su-Yung was working on the most ambitious project in human history. Using the Gateway Network, she was trying to map every galaxy in the universe and find ways to connect them all. President Kim, this is bigger than we ever imagined, she reported. There are millions of galaxies out there, and most of them don't even know the others exist. Are there other intelligent species? President Kim asked. Thousands of them. Maybe millions. And sir, most of them are having the same problems we had. Powerful empires controlling smaller species, exiling anyone who gets too strong or too smart. President Kim was quiet for a long moment. He was thinking about something that would change the universe forever. Yang Su-Yung, he said finally, I want you to send a message to every galaxy you can reach. Tell them humanity has a solution to the Empire problem. The message that went out through the Gateway Network was simple, but powerful. Tired of being controlled by galactic empires? Humanity has found a better way. Join us in the void between galaxies where all species are equal and free. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of messages came back from oppressed species across the universe. They all wanted to know more about humanity's offer, but the most important message came from their old galaxy. High Chancellor Mordeth himself had somehow figured out how to contact them. Humans, his message said, we made a terrible mistake. The galaxy is falling apart without you. Please come back. We'll give you anything you want. President Kim read the message to his cabinet. Everyone was quiet for a moment. What should we tell him? Asked Admiral Yoon. President Kim smiled. It was not a nice smile. Tell him we'll think about it. But if we do come back, it won't be as refugees begging for a home. It will be as the leaders of something much bigger than his little galactic council. In the distance, more gateway structures were awakening as humanity's influence spread. Soon the void between galaxies would be busier than the galaxy itself. The species that had tried to exile humanity was about to learn that some mistakes can never be undone. The galaxy was dying and everyone knew it. High Chancellor Mordeth stood in the ruins of what used to be the Council's greatest trading station. Half the lights were broken and the other half flickered weakly. Ships that used to bring goods from across the galaxy had stopped coming months ago. How bad is it? He asked his advisor, Councillor Vexathani. Worse than we thought possible, she replied, checking her data pad. The Zalaran Empire just lost another 3-star systems to rebels. The Vorthak Confederation split into 6 different factions, and they're all fighting each other. The Altarian trade network collapsed completely. Mordeth walked to the window and looked out at space. Once, this area had been filled with ships from dozens of different species, all working together under the Council's guidance. Now he could see only empty darkness and a few broken pieces of metal floating where ships used to dock. All because we exiled one species, he said quietly. Sir, the humans weren't just any species, Vexathani reminded him. They were the center of everything. Their location, their technology, their trading relationships. We didn't realize how much the galaxy depended on them until they were gone. Back in the void between galaxies, Dr. Bei Jinwoo was monitoring the situation with great interest. His job was to watch the galaxy and report on how badly things were falling apart. His daily reports to President Kim were getting more dramatic each time. The economic collapse is accelerating, he reported during the morning briefing. 6 more species have declared independence from the Council this week. The hyperspace routes are so dangerous now that most traders won't use them. President Kim nodded. What about military conflicts? 17 active wars, sir. Most of them are over resources or trade routes. The Council's peacekeeping forces are stretched too thin to stop any of them. General Oh Seok-jin was listening to the reports while planning something much more important. He was in charge of training the new Intervoid Alliance military forces, and what he was building would have terrified the old Galactic Council. "How many ships do we have now?" President Kim asked him. "Over 10,000, sir, and they're not like anything the galaxy has ever seen. These void-enhanced ships can appear anywhere instantly using the Gateway network. One of our ships could attack 100 different planets at the same time." Engineer Han Ji-young had perfected the process of awakening the ancient gateway structures. Every day, more of the sleeping megastructures came online, adding their power to humanity's growing empire in the void. "We now have active gateways in 47 different galaxies," she reported. "Each galaxy has hundreds or thousands of oppressed species that want to join our alliance." The numbers were staggering. What had started as 8 billion exiled humans had become an alliance of trillions of beings from across the universe. They all had one thing in common. They had been pushed around by galactic empires and they were ready to push back. But President Kim wasn't interested in simple revenge. He had a much bigger plan. "We're not going to destroy the galaxy," he told his cabinet during a strategy meeting. "We're going to save it. But first we need to show them what real power looks like." The demonstration came when Scout Commander Shin Yuna detected something troubling through their hidden sensors in the galaxy. "Sir, the Galactic Council is building a massive invasion fleet," she reported urgently. "They're planning to come after us." President Kim was surprised. "They still think they can threaten us?" "Apparently so, sir." High Chancellor Mordeth convinced the remaining council members that humanity must have found some kind of secret weapon in the void. "He thinks if they can capture our technology, they can fix their problems." Admiral Lee Kyung-min was put in charge of humanity's response. When President Kim told him about the Council's invasion plans, he just smiled. "How big is their fleet?" Admiral Lee asked. "About 5,000 ships," Shin Yuna replied. "The largest military force the galaxy has ever assembled." "And how long until they reach the edge of the galaxy?" 6 months, sir," Admiral Lee nodded. "That gives us plenty of time to prepare a proper welcome." The next 6 months were busy ones for the Intervoid Alliance. Species from dozens of galaxies sent ships and warriors to help humanity deal with their old enemies. The ancient Gateway network hummed with activity, as the largest military force in universal history assembled in the void. Captain Park Wansik was chosen to command the demonstration strike that would show the galaxy what they were really dealing with. His ship, the Voidwalker, was equipped with technology that combined the best innovations from 47 different exiled species. "Remember," Admiral Lee told him, "we're not trying to start a war. We're trying to end one before it begins." When the Galactic Council's invasion fleet finally reached the edge of the galaxy, they found Admiral Lee waiting for them with the entire Intervoid Alliance Navy. But this wasn't the desperate group of refugees that had left 18 months ago. This was a technological empire that made the galaxy's greatest civilizations look like children playing with toys. High Chancellor Mordeth stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the enemy fleet in amazement. There were so many ships he couldn't count them all. They seemed to stretch on forever, and they were all glowing with the strange blue energy of the void. "Open communications," he ordered. "I want to speak to whoever is in charge." President Kim appeared on the screen, and Mordeth was shocked by how much the human leader had changed. He looked older and wiser, but also more powerful. Behind him, Mordeth could see beings from dozens of species working together. "High Chancellor Mordeth," President Kim said politely. "It's been a while." "President Kim," Mordeth replied, trying to sound confident. "We've come to discuss the return of humanity to the galaxy. We're prepared to offer very generous terms." President Kim laughed. "You came here with 5,000 warships to offer me generous terms?" Mordeth felt embarrassed. When he had planned this invasion, 5,000 ships had seemed like an overwhelming force. Now facing the Void Fleet, it looked pathetic. "We came prepared for any possibility," Mordeth said weakly. "I see," President Kim replied. "Well, let me show you one possibility you didn't prepare for." He nodded to someone off-screen, and Captain Park Wansik's ship moved forward. It was much smaller than Mordeth's flagship, but it was glowing with void energy. "Your flagship has very impressive shields," President Kim said conversationally. "The best technology your civilization ever developed. I wonder how they'll handle this." Park Wansik fired a single shot from his void-enhanced weapon. The beam of energy hit Mordeth's flagship and passed right through its shields like they weren't even there. The massive ship simply disintegrated, turned into harmless particles in less than a second. The entire Galactic Council fleet panicked. Some ships tried to run, others tried to fight, but most just sat there in shock. They had never seen anything like the power that had just destroyed their greatest warship. That was just one shot from one small ship, President Kim said calmly. We have 10,000 ships, each one more powerful than the one you just saw. Would you like to discuss those generous terms again? Mordeth's voice came from an escape pod that had ejected from his destroyed flagship. We surrender, he said quietly. The Galactic Council formally surrenders to humanity, but President Kim shook his head. You don't understand, High Chancellor. We're not interested in your surrender. We're not here to conquer your galaxy. Then what do you want? Mordeth asked, confused. We want to save it, President Kim replied. Your galaxy is just one small part of something much bigger. We're going to show you what the universe really looks like when species work together, instead of trying to control each other. Dr. Yang Suyung appeared on the screen next to President Kim. High Chancellor, we've been in contact with millions of species across thousands of galaxies. Most of them are dealing with the same problems you caused here. Empires that grow too big, species that get too powerful and push everyone else around. What are you saying? Mordeth asked. We're saying the age of galactic empires is over, President Kim explained. From now on, this galaxy will be part of the Universal Cooperative. Every species will have an equal voice. No one will be exiled for growing too fast or thinking too differently. Ambassador Jun Mira took over the conversation. We're going to rebuild your galaxy, High Chancellor. But this time we're going to do it right. And if you cooperate, your species can be part of something amazing. Mordeth looked around at his scattered fleet, then at the overwhelming force of the Intervoid Alliance. He realized he didn't really have a choice. What do you need us to do? He asked. President Kim smiled. First, you're going to help us contact every species in this galaxy. Then, you're going to help us build permanent gateways that will connect this galaxy to all the others. And finally, you're going to help us teach other galactic empires throughout the universe that there's a better way to do things. As Mordeth listened to the human president explain the future, he realized something amazing. Humanity hadn't just survived their exile. They had used it to become something the universe had never seen before. A force for universal cooperation and peace. The species that had tried to get rid of humanity was about to become their first student in building a better universe. 2 years after the surrender of the Galactic Council, everything had changed. Captain Lee Minho, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Earth Station and watched ships from hundreds of different species dock peacefully together. It was a sight that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Earth had been restored to its former beauty, but now it served a much bigger purpose. Instead of being the home of just one species, it had become the first intergalactic capital in universal history. The blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight, and the green continents were dotted with cities built by dozens of different alien architectures working together. Hard to believe this is the same planet the Council wanted to destroy, said Dr. Park Suna, joining Admiral Lee at the window. Admiral Lee nodded. Sometimes I think they did us a favor by exiling us. If we had stayed, we never would have discovered what we were really capable of. Down on the planet's surface, President Kim Do-hyun was meeting with representatives from over 3,000 different species. The Universal Cooperative had grown far beyond anything they had originally imagined. What started as humanity's exile had become the foundation for peace across the entire universe. The reports are very encouraging, Ambassador Jun Mira told the Assembly. Galactic empires in 47 different galaxies have agreed to join the cooperative. Most of them dissolved their military forces voluntarily once they saw what we could offer. The offer was simple but revolutionary. Instead of each galaxy being controlled by a few powerful species, every world would have an equal voice in the Universal Cooperative. Trade would be free and fair. Technology would be shared freely. No species would ever be exiled for growing too fast or thinking too differently. High Chancellor Mordeth, now serving as the galaxy's representative to the cooperative, raised his hand to speak. It was strange seeing the former dictator asking permission like everyone else. But he had adapted to the new system better than anyone expected. President Kim, he said, we've received a message from the Andromeda Galaxy. Their Imperial Council wants to know if the Cooperative's offer applies to them as well. President Kim smiled. Of course it does. Dr. Yang, how many gateways do we need to connect Andromeda to our network? Dr. Yang Suyong checked her datapad. About 50 major gateways should do it, sir. We can have them operational within 6 months. The speed at which the Cooperative could expand still amazed everyone. The ancient gateway network that humanity had awakened was like having instant highways connecting every part of the universe. Distance and time were no longer barriers to cooperation and trade. Engineer Choi Sun-ho was leading the most ambitious construction project in history. Using the gateway network and void-enhanced technology, his teams were building permanent structures that would connect every galaxy in the known universe. The Universal Gateway Array will be finished next year, he reported to President Kim. Once it's complete, any species anywhere in the universe will be able to contact any other species instantly. Captain Park Won-sik, now in charge of the Cooperative's defense forces, had a different kind of good news to report. Sir, we haven't had to use military force in over 8 months, he said proudly. The last 3 galactic empires that joined us did so voluntarily after they saw what their neighbors were accomplishing. It was true. The Cooperative's success was so obvious that most empires couldn't ignore it. Species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years were now working together on joint projects. Technologies that had been jealously guarded secrets were being shared freely, leading to innovations that no single species could have achieved alone. But perhaps the most important changes were happening on a smaller scale. Captain Song Hana had been visiting worlds throughout the universe, documenting how ordinary people's lives had improved under the cooperative system. I just came back from the Vega system, she told President Kim. 5 years ago, those worlds were strip-mined by the Altarian Empire. Now they're garden worlds with thriving cities built by Altarians and Vegans working together. General Oh Seokjin had transformed from a military leader into something much more important. A teacher. His job now was to help former military commanders from galactic empires learn how to protect peace. Instead of enforcing conquest, it's amazing how many generals actually prefer this, he told Admiral Lee during one of their regular meetings. Most of them became soldiers to protect their people, not to conquer other worlds. When you give them a chance to do that without fighting wars, they're much happier. The old Galactic Council species had adapted to the new system in different ways. The Zelaran Empire had become the Zelaran Scientific Collective, sharing their advanced mathematics with anyone who wanted to learn. The Vorthak Confederation had split into dozens of smaller groups, each one specializing in different technologies and arts. Dr. Kang Yoonji was now leading the Universal Science Council, coordinating research projects that involved thousands of species across hundreds of galaxies. Her latest project was the most ambitious yet. We're trying to map the entire universe, she explained to a gathering of scientists from across the galaxy. Not just the parts we can see, but the hidden dimensions and parallel realities that the Gateway Network can access. The preliminary results were staggering. The universe was much larger and more complex than anyone had imagined. There were entire regions of reality that had never been explored, filled with forms of life and energy that defied every known law of physics. Ambassador Ryu Min-sok had perhaps the most interesting job of all. He was in charge of contacting species that lived in those strange regions of reality, explaining the cooperative system and inviting them to join. Some of them exist in ways we can barely understand, he reported to President Kim. Energy beings that live inside stars, quantum entities that exist in multiple dimensions at once, hive minds that span entire galaxy clusters, but they all have one thing in common. They're interested in cooperation instead of conquest. The success of the Universal Cooperative hadn't gone unnoticed by the few remaining galactic empires that refused to join. Scout Commander Shin Yuna was monitoring their activities carefully. The hegemony of distant suns is building a large military fleet, she reported during a security briefing. They call themselves the Last Empire and claim they'll never surrender to what they call the human virus. President Kim was saddened by this news but not surprised. How big is their fleet? About 50,000 ships, sir. They've been recruiting from all the species that got kicked out of the cooperative for refusing to follow the peaceful cooperation rules. Admiral Lee leaned forward. Should we prepare a military response? President Kim shook his head. No. Send them an invitation to visit Earth. Let them see what we've built here. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into a friend. The invitation was sent, and surprisingly, the last empire's leaders agreed to come. They arrived with a small escort fleet, expecting to see a weak alliance of idealistic species that could be easily conquered. What they found instead was something that challenged everything they believed about power and strength. Earth's orbital stations were filled with technologies from thousands of different species, all working together to create wonders that no single empire could have built alone. Emperor Vashitok of the last empire stood in President Kim's office, looking out at the bustling spaceports where ships from across the universe loaded and unloaded cargo in perfect harmony. "How do you control all of this?" he asked, confused. "Where are your armies? Your secret police? Your punishment centers?" President Kim laughed gently. "We don't control it, Emperor. We coordinate it. Every species here chose to join us because they saw that cooperation works better than conquest." "Impossible," Emperor Vashitok said. "Someone has to be in charge. Someone has to make the hard decisions and force others to obey." "You're right," President Kim agreed. "Someone does have to make the hard decisions. But in the cooperative, everyone gets to be part of making those decisions. Watch." President Kim activated his communication system and posed a question to the Universal Assembly. "We have visitors from the last empire who want to know how we make decisions. Could you explain our process?" Within minutes, thousands of responses came in from species across the universe. Each one explained a different aspect of how the cooperative worked, how decisions were made through discussion and consensus rather than force and fear. Emperor Vashitok listened to the responses with growing amazement. These weren't the words of conquered slaves or frightened subjects. These were the voices of free beings who had chosen to work together because they wanted to, not because they had to. "What happens if someone disagrees with a decision?" Emperor Vashitok asked. "Then we keep talking until we find a solution that works for everyone," President Kim replied. "It takes longer than just ordering people around, but the results are much better." That evening, Emperor Vashitok met with Captain Nam Hyesu, who gave him a tour of Earth's restored ecosystems. He saw forests where trees from a dozen different worlds grew together, creating new forms of beauty that had never existed before. "This is what happens when species cooperate instead of compete," Captain Nam explained. "Instead of destroying each other's worlds,